Time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with Florence Villeminot. Great to see you, Flo.
Hey, Delana.
This week we're going to focus on the French language and particularly slang.
That's right. Now, French is notoriously hard to learn, right? You have worked hard, you've mastered the masculine, the feminine, the vouvoiement, the subjunctive, you're ready. You come to France and you're completely lost. And not only are you lost, you sound like a dork. And why is that? Well, that's because everyday French that you learn in a classroom, in a textbook, is very different from, everyday language in French in the street is very different from the language you learn in a textbook or in class. So this week I want to give you a taste of the local lingo. We only have about 5 minutes, so much like speed dating, this is going to be a speed lesson in argot. So argot is our first word du jour, and it is the French word for slang.
Before we dive into the specifics, what's the history of argot here?
So slang might seem hip and modern, but actually it's arguably as old as the French language itself. The first mention of argot dates back to the Middle Ages. So at the time, it was a vocabulary that was used by outlaws and crooks and beggars and misfits, the underbelly of society, if you will. There's an interesting mention of argot in the book Les Misérables by Victor Hugo from 1862. So he said that argot was both the language of the dark and the language of misery. Interestingly, argot became more mainstream in the 60s, but regardless of when, what's interesting is why. Argot has always been used to communicate about things, especially taboo things like sex and money and drugs, without being understood by authority figures, so the police or your parents.
J'ai de ça, je comprends tous les mots, mais alors dans la phrase, j'ai de ça.
Bon, j'ai fait ça super bien, quoi.
Ok, d'accord.
Choc barre, non, je connais pas.
Bah, je suis choqué.
J'ai floppé. Non,
Si j'ai fait une blague pas drôle, quoi.
Eh, mais tu connais tout, toi.
Bah oui.
Now, Delana, you speak impeccable French, but
With many mistakes.
let's not look at the mistakes. Let's just spice it up a little bit with some slang. I've selected just a few words for you. For instance, next time you're talking about money, you can actually talk about les thunes instead of l'argent. I don't know if you have a car, I doubt it somehow.
I don't even drive.
But you don't talk about une voiture, you talk about une bagnole. When you're talking about sleeping, dormir, you can talk about pioncer. And I know you have a sister, so instead of talking about your sœur, you can talk about a frangine, your frangine.
The funniest thing, I thought thune was actually a real word because with friends we use it so often instead of talking about l'argent, so now I know. Okay, let's talk about another major provider of slang, something called verlan.
Now, verlan is arguably the most popular form of slang in French. It essentially consists with playing around with syllables, kind of along the lines of Pig Latin. You can see the word verlan here. So to verlan a word, you separate it into syllables and you reverse them and then you put them back together. Verlan is actually a verlan word. It's the verlan of l'envers, which means inverse. Now, the problem is that verlan is once again something you don't learn in school. It's actively spoken in the street, however. So, Delana, once again, I'm going to test your verlan. I made a little selection because there are a lot of verlan words. Let's see if you can figure out what they mean. Let's start with cimer. You got chelou, ouf, tromé, vénère, and zarbi. What does cimer mean?
Merci.
Merci. There you go. Thank you. Chelou.
Something is annoying.
Louche.
Like,
Louche. It means it's crazy. Strange. I was jumping ahead of myself. Oof.
Ouf is fool, like crazy.
Crazy, that's right, exactly. They've got tromé.
I don't know that.
Métro.
Ah,
You take the
métro.
metro, you take the tromé. Vénère. Énervé.
Énervé, okay.
means you're upset. And zarbi.
Zarbi, I don't know.
Bizarre.
Bizarre.
All right, Delano, I'm going to have to fail you.
I'm going to fail me.
So what's interesting, though, is even though verlan is associated with young people, once again, its origin dates back to the Middle Ages. And once again, people used verlan to speak cryptically without being understood by authorities. And these days, people use it for the exact same reason.
Bon, à l'école, en classe, je dois parler français avec la prof. Mais dans la cour, moi, je parle verlan.
C'est comme pour le mort, c'est un code. Les militaires, ils utilisent un code pour pas se faire comprendre par rapport aux autres. Bah, nous, c'est un code entre nous pour pas se faire entendre par rapport aux autres, quoi. C'est tout, ça s'arrête là. Ça va pas plus loin.
Now, interestingly, many verlan words have become so commonplace that they're actually in the dictionary. But arguably, if a word ends up in the dictionary, it's pretty much mainstream and not so much fun anymore.
Exactly. Now, slang is a testament to how alive the French language is. It's also a window into French society, isn't it?
It is, and it's one of the beautiful things about slang is that it's a mirror of France and its history and all the various influences over the years. Now, these days, a lot of English words are used as slang, but a lot of words from Arabic are also used as slang in French. And some of them are very common and have been used for years. For instance, you have la smala for family, moula for money, chouya for a little bit, or toubib for doctor. But there are other more recent words that you should definitely be aware of. Once again, I've made a slight selection. You've got avoir le seum. So this is when you're annoyed or upset. J'ai le seum. Voilà, this is something you hear a lot. Kids use it to essentially punctuate their conversation. So voilà means seriously or I swear. And then you have wesh. Wesh is definitely one that is very popular these days. And once again, young people use it as kind of a greeting or an interjection, a form of saying hello, like wesh, ça va mec? Or you can say, wesh wesh. It's like, oh my God, I'm surprised by what you're saying. Interestingly, apparently this French slang word is actually being used in the UK now after a British rapper used it in a song. So proof about how slang just travels around France, but also, I guess, the world as well. And I think Argot is a really fun and beautiful machine. It continues to reinvent the French language. And Delano, I've got to say, you need to, work on your slang game.
I need to hang out with young people, clearly. Thank you very much for that, Florence Villeminot there. And that's all the time we have for this edition of French Connections. Be sure to check out other editions on our website. The address is france24.com.